Fran, is that you?
Oh, hello, how are you? Look at me.
Yeah. Wow. Look at us. Um, and yet you somehow seem like you.
Well, is it me or is this just, I don't know, is it like a video game? Because to me, this all looks like a very realistic video game, you know?
But I don't play video games.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for me, I'm just going to have a look around. Oh, wow. How did you choose this room, Fran? Did you have to make it? Did you? Oh, I don't like the deer over there
I know that's sad.
with a
Well,
virtual
this
headset
is
on.
we are in workrooms, and this is developed by Facebook, isn't it? That now changes its name to Meta. So this is a template, you can choose from
Oh,
different templates.
I
Mhm.
love the views out the window. So you chose this kind of office. Did you have a choice of other backgrounds?
So we have city backgrounds, countryside backgrounds, mountain backgrounds, and it's all about working, isn't it? It's about I'm imagining this designer saying, okay, let's think, where are the best offices in the world, and let's try to replicate that online.
It's that's
Mm,
and this is working for me so far. Actually, I find it kind of peaceful.
mm,
Maybe
mm.
it's the light and maybe is there some white noise? I can't really tell, but it's peaceful. I'm not hearing any background noise, and um and the big windows.
Yeah. And have you noticed that you can see the clouds moving very, very slowly?
I can't tell from here, but let's have a look.
And it gives a sense of reality, doesn't it? And then we have the sun. I,
Actually, you know what?
I,
There's some kind of cabin down below, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney of it. And actually, behind you now, out the window, I can see what seems to be some kind of mist coming off the lake and some houses in
Hmm.
the different. So maybe it's low cloud because we're in the mountains now. Do you know? I've completely forgotten where I actually am. In
well,
my
well, doesn't it look a bit like the Lake District? I mean,
yeah,
the trees and the water. It looks like a
yeah,
bit like that. It's
it
funny.
does look like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and how did you get the logo up there? The Lenticular Futures logo. That's wonderful.
Well, it's funny because when you choose a room, you can upload images,
Oh,
and you can use those images as a logo or as a poster.
so the logo thing is kind of a businessy thing, isn't it? But
Absolutely.
presumably, if you're doing therapy and working with somebody, or you're
Mm,
living in this space,
mm.
um, then you can put up pictures you have in your house or pictures you'd like to have and can't afford.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And you can even project them on the wall, can't you? If we would connect at some
Yeah,
point the PC to the wall, that's
yeah.
something that kind of
We
lots
did
of.
that yesterday, didn't we? We
Mm,
had the whole computer up there. We'll do that another time. Uh, and there is also a way of seeing the computer in front of you, not the computer.
mm.
I can't
Yeah,
find those buttons again now
yeah,
that show the
yeah.
keyboard in front of me. But
So
anyway,
there is a whole learning about how to use this, isn't it? And I feel very frustrating. It's not as easy as I imagine it would be, the
well,
whole
you're quite
process.
techie, and I'm quite techie, and we have had some uh, times when it's taken us more time than
Yeah,
we'd expected to get things to
yeah.
understand how things work. What we've got on both of our hands, I don't know if people can see, are these kind of white bracelety things with buttons on them. That means we can point at things.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then they become
oops.
our
Oh,
hands, isn't it? Oh, there you go.
what's happened?
I
What
don't
what can
know.
you see that
I
happened?
see that suddenly you got them in your hands.
The white things.
Yeah, the white joysticks. That is like a joystick thing, isn't it?
So I went from having hands. You've just got hands at the moment to having the white things.
Oh,
But what I can see at the moment is a bit of my desktop, and I don't know if it'll show on my recording of things, and my
right.
coffee. So I'm not going to knock my coffee over because did you know? Did you know that? something like 30% of house insurance claims have gone up because people got Oculuses for
Oh my God.
Christmas and then they reached out or something, did something and smashed their television.
It's
So,
crazy.
so there's its own health and safety things going on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about when people have accidents having a selfie. That's a new problem that that
Yeah.
mobile phones brought. So VR is
This
bringing other stuff.
this is so different to Zoom.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, one of the things that's led us into being curious about VR is the fact that some therapists, we'll talk more about that at another point. So lots of
yeah.
therapists are starting to use and experiment with other methods of engaging online with people. And so when we all moved, into Zoom, I guess we just got used to being online and
Mm,
developing relationships in that space.
mm,
But there's something about the space around you and behind you and to my left and right. I feel it's easier to move around.
mm,
That because
mm,
I'm seeing you move around. I'm not feeling I have to sit like this
mm,
with a
mm.
frame around my head. Um,
But
you
it's
know,
also I'm watching you, and it's really weird that you don't have legs in this
oh yeah.
environment, in this interface. You're just
So
like a
if I
half
stand,
body thing. Exactly.
is that what's happened now? You can't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
anything.
you're just floating like a ghost. So it's really interesting. that, yeah, but we're sharing a space. I think that's a very interesting point, isn't it? It's not that
Oh,
you are in your
that's
studio, I'm in
important.
my office. This is sharing a space, a common that common.
So if I was your client
Yeah.
and I was saying, well, firstly, would you design the space? Could you design the space more for me and think, what does Gail want? Where would she be comfortable? Or could I
Mm.
choose and say, I would rather be at the seaside than in the city or in the mountains?
Well, it's open all those possibilities, isn't it?
What about for people who have
Mm,
agoraphobia? A big room
mm,
like this with big windows,
mm.
might not suit somebody.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
I wonder if you can configure those things. But then, of course, we're only using Horizon Workrooms,
Yeah.
which was designed for teamwork, for offices, for workplaces. I guess there'll be other programs that keep getting developed. That will be nice, cozy, different kinds of colorful spaces
Absolutely,
for people.
absolutely, and people to meet in other social spaces. Actually, the metaverse is all those collections of different spaces online on the virtual world, isn't it? That we still don't really know what it is because it's more of a promise. Some people say it's more of a promise of this
It's
alternative
something,
world.
and it's unfolding, isn't it?
Mm,
It's
mm,
people are working round the clock developing new programs, new platforms within new apps
yeah.
for within the metaverse. Um, should we say the metaverse,
Mm.
or should we say online or in virtual reality? I'm not sure. Always on the distinctions in the language people are using. Sometimes people talk about immersive
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This is an
And
immersive experience, isn't it?
it's completely immersive. As
Yeah.
I said, I'm
Yeah.
not aware of the outside anything
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
at all right now.
And I'm very shocked by well, probably not now that much, but at the beginning, the corporality, the 3D thing, seeing you in 3D, and we did a hi-fi the other day. I can't move my hands now, but
How
um,
come we were able to move our hands? Can you just see the white thing in my hands
yes,
now?
the joysticks, yeah.
What happens if I take them off? Do I have any hands now, or do you just see the
You
white
you
things on
just
the
lost
desk?
one. You lost one. That's great.
Oh,
So the other one. So if you when you leave it down, when you put it down, you don't see them. I don't see them anymore. So you
but
don't
it
have
was
them
what?
now.
But what was weird? But you didn't
Uh,
see my hands.
well, now you have your hands in one of the yeah. If you
Uh, the other day, though, both of
yeah
us put down our white
yeah
things,
yeah.
and we both had hands. We were waving. We
You're
did high
right.
five.
Why don't we try to do that again? So, I think if we leave them on the floor, sort of on the table, and then just put our hands up, the camera, because this thing, the headsets have a camera. Yeah. Oh, I see you. I see you
Oh,
now.
it's when.
It's when the
It's when
camera,
it's in
yeah,
it's when it's in view in front of me.
yeah, must
And then
be.
I've got the little Oculus things. Oh,
Oh my, what was that? Oh, I'm
that's
here. My hands are here. Did you see them?
yes, you're there. There's
I don't know. I
okay,
just,
high five, kiddo.
hey.
Bing! Oh my God, I
Oh
think I
my
just hit my
goodness.
monitor.
Oh, did you? Oh, whoa. Oh, that was
You see,
scary.
this is so the reality of the
Try,
virtual
do this
wait.
again.
Yeah, but I'm not doing it hard because I'll
Okay.
smack the monitor.
Oh,
Bing!
okay, okay. I
That's really
thought,
weird.
okay, okay, okay.
So so there's something about the reality that we call it
Yeah,
virtual reality, but it feels very real. So you do
yeah,
forget that there's this world with
yeah.
I've got a big monitor between me and you,
Right,
you
right,
know, that I could hit or
right.
reach out and touch. Anyway, morning, Fran.
Hello again.
Are you dressed for the beach?
Well, look at this place.
What do
So
you
we
think
can,
of it?
I don't know, it's just really, really interesting. It's so Greek. I love it. It's so sunny and white. Again, it looks like a lovely image from from a video game, doesn't it? Uh,
There
what do
is
you
some of that.
think?
I love the colours. I love the white and blue. I've never actually been to Greece, so
Mm.
this is perhaps the closest I've got in physical terms. It's amazing to see the sky and the contrast of the blue paint and the blue sky. They're very different blues, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
And
that.
and how did you pick your avatar? Clothes and appearance?
Well, that was a whole story. And maybe other people are more adept at this and even more used to the idea of choosing an avatar. It's the first time I think I've done that. Maybe I did it a million years ago in a very
Mm.
simple way, but I found it to begin with that I wanted to be very dismissive of it. And then I
Mm-hmm.
really got into it. But I kept moving between this question of, am I trying to uh, describe what I think I really look like, or
Mm.
what I could be like, what I feel like today.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of different questions. It reminded me when I draw, I often try and draw things how they really look, even though I come from a postmodern stance and appreciate abstract paintings and drawings. Um, uh, so in the end, I just went for clothes that I'd normally wear, something as close to jeans and jumpers and that sort of thing. What
So
about
there's
you?
something. So there's something about. I was wondering. There's something about the avatar trying to uh, have us to have a clear representation of. Oh wait, there is a. Do you see in the mountains over there? Behind you, I see like a little castle, little Greek at the top of a building. So
Oh, yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Oh wow, I love it.
Actually, when you look along the ridge, Fran, there
Uh,
are lots of those buildings with blue rounded roofs.
right. Very
I
beautiful.
don't know if this is a real country. I have no idea with what, but it's interesting because we're talking
Yeah,
about real and unreal and
yeah,
made up and
exactly.
what feels important. So my first thought was, would Greek people be upset, or Greek or
Yeah,
Cypriot people be upset by
yeah,
some of the kind of, oh, this looks, you
yeah.
know, and then I was thinking, but I wonder if there are more permissions in a make-believe virtual world.
Mm.
And
And
but what about,
in a
yeah, go
world
on.
that is
Mm.
designed to work, because I go back to this idea that this is a work setting, this is a company setting up something so that people are more efficient in their work, isn't it?
That's right.
And move to a different office that is cheaper. It's cheaper to work from home. So this is oh, let's go to this virtual place that is, cheaper for everybody, for companies particularly.
You use the word efficient, but I was also thinking
Mm,
about the word that's often used in relation to psychotherapy,
mm,
such as effective.
mm,
And actually, for a lot of people, it would be really fun to be meeting one's therapist in
yeah.
this environment.
Mm,
But do therapists then need to look like, and this is a very difficult
mm,
expression, their authentic selves,
Mm.
where their authentic self is what apparently they really look like.
Right.
But of course, there's a big gap between what we think we look like and how we appear and how we sound to others
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because then the client can also play with the idea of an avatar. So
Mm.
going back to what you were saying before, oh, this is distracting. My hands are making funny noises. So the whole thing is very distractive, isn't it? Because we are trying to focus in our conversation and I keep looking at, different things and yeah. So funny.
Well, maybe psychotherapy
Mm,
involves an art of trying not to be too distracted,
mm,
to stay focused on what someone's saying. But
yeah.
actually, in the virtual world, and certainly beyond Zoom or the box of Zoom or the box of the
Mm,
consulting room, the physical
mm,
consulting room, there are more spaces for doing, which is, of course, what we do in the rest of the world. There's a lot of doing on our own, with others, with things. It makes me. Tell me a bit about you
yeah,
and your
yeah.
outfit.
Yeah. Well,
How did
I
you
take it.
choose? Who are? Is it an outfit or is it a you?
It's just a playful idea, really, of a me. It's one aspect of me in this moment. That might change this afternoon when we meet again. That might change tomorrow, whatever. I don't take it that seriously, and I can understand that for some people the avatar is going to be like a playful idea, and for some others it's going to be the closest thing to a physical identity. So we have a physical identity, we have a virtual identity, an ideal identity, maybe. Maybe the avatar is who you want to become in the future. Maybe.
That makes me think
Mm,
about the importance of context,
yeah.
and how in systemic uh, thinking we always try and understand how context is affecting people's sense of choice, who they are, how they come across, what they feel they can do in the
Yeah.
world, where they can go, who they can be. And so there's something about the
Mm,
playfulness or the seriousness actually as
yeah.
well of in the relationship between identity and context. So we've changed the context. And I remember Ken Gergen saying, you change the context or you change the activities and you change the language.
Yeah.
So I wonder how the context is affecting how we're talking, how we're
Mm,
dressing, how we feel we want to be in this environment.
yeah, because when you were saying that, I was thinking maybe I would be cautious if I'm meeting my therapist or my supervisor in a city, in an offline world. I might probably not wear makeup like I'm doing now, like in my lips or lipstick or specific clothing. I would probably be targeted, as a queer man. I would probably be targeted if I in certain cities or in certain neighborhoods of certain cities. So there is something about playfulness, but also about expressing aspects of yourself that you wouldn't express in the real world necessarily, or depending on that
So there
context.
are safety issues, there are
Mm,
permission possibilities, but also there are stories of what professionals should look like. So, for example, suppose I'm coming to see you for therapy now.
mm,
Um, is it okay for a therapist uh, um, to be dressed like you're dressed, to be presenting how you, or should you be looking more something,
yeah,
something or the other that
yeah.
equates to professional?
Absolutely. Absolutely. More like a health staff. I used to be for many years health staff, category health staff. What does that mean?
Yes. Would you have been given a uniform to wear?
No, but there is a dress code. There was a dress code, that you needed to follow.
There are lots
Um,
of people who are now working in organizations and always have done
mm,
where they have to dress
mm,
in a certain way. Of course, another thing, I'm thinking about some colleagues who have to wear a lot of PPE when they go to work. And this is an environment where you don't have to wear a mask.
mm,
And everyone around us right now is masked up.
mm,
We're masked
mm,
up in the watching of this, but not the making of it.
mm,
So we're able to see each other's mouths moving, which is, it looks futuristic, but actually it's also old fashioned.
mm.
We're able to see someone else's mouth move
Yeah,
without a mask
yeah,
on.
yeah. So is that
Mm.
convincing? Is that sense of truth, isn't it? And so the closer to the truth, because at the end of the day we're really I don't know. This is like a big game to our brains, isn't it? We know
Mm.
that we're not that close, but our brain perceives us in this in this virtual world. We're sharing this environment. This is a trick to our brain in a way, isn't it?
It's working for me.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
And it reminds me of how adaptable humans are, because I remember the very first few times that I saw somebody walking along looking like they
Mm,
were talking to themselves. This
mm,
is a long time ago, a decade or more ago now,
mm,
before wireless headsets came in,
mm.
and for telephones. And so you got a bit of a shock if you saw someone walking along because you thought they had a mental health problem and
Oh,
that they were in a
yeah,
state of psychosis
yeah.
and they were talking to
Mm,
themselves. And you sort of, or the uh, practitioner in me kind of was sort of a little alert to, are they okay?
mm,
Are they okay for themselves? Are they okay for anyone around them? And then you start to realize it's just people walking around, waving their hands,
mm,
talking to a friend who you can't see.
mm.
And it's this kind of experience I think we're all getting used
Yeah,
to. Well, you and I are getting used to
yeah.
very quickly. I'm looking in your eyes the whole time you're talking.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm getting used
And when
to
I'm
your
talking to
features.
you,
I'm getting used to your features too. So this kind of makes me think about this idea of a techno-human. Can we talk a little bit about that?
say more what you mean by that.
So is it at some point we are so embedded in the technology, isn't it, that we say, oh, this is how will we adapt in this technology? But it's already with us, isn't it? We live in this context. Even even people in countries that are less developed in terms of economies, the use of mobile phone is absolutely massive. Cryptocurrencies, now we have this virtual reality thing. So it's all over the place, isn't it?
And I think I can't engage with technocurrency because it's so big
Mm,
and I don't understand enough about it. And I'm not even sure if it's legit or corrupt or
mm,
whatever. But in terms of
yeah.
techno-human, I think what's interesting is that the script, the told story, is you have a choice about which phone you buy if you have
Mm,
money. You decide if you're getting a yellow one or a black one. You decide if you're going to get a small one or a large one, this make or that make. And of course, what kind of camera it has. But there's a lot of listening and recording and using of our information that's going on via our telephones. Our telephones are us, we are
mm,
them. And at the same time, we're in a relationship with these other third parties.
mm,
We don't even know who they are,
mm, mm,
but they're using our information. So I think there's something about that separation of
mm.
uh,
Yeah, yeah,
technology and human,
yeah,
and that anthropocentric
yeah,
idea that we
yeah,
humans own it, we made
yeah,
it, we control
yeah.
it. It's all right, we control it. But actually, we don't control it. It's controlling and listening to us too. It's much more integrated, hence the word techno human without a hyphen.
Well, in a way, we are the commodity, isn't it? Because when we use
Ah,
Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all these social media platforms and things, and we think it's all being offered free, in reality, apparently, what we do is we exchange, we give away, we give to these people, to these corporations, all of our privacy and data
it's the
and a
end
lot
of
of
privacy.
information. Mm,
Privacy is now something we have to face.
yeah,
Privacy is a quaint bit of history.
yeah,
So we have to rethink what we mean by this word privacy because how we grew up configuring it in our minds, well,
yeah.
it's moved on.
Gail, are we saying then, because in order to use this technology, you had to have, and I had to have a Facebook account. So you can't have an Oculus if you don't have a Facebook account, right?
And you really
Right.
can't because you can't like open it and then close it because then the Oculus becomes obsolete.
So that means that we're using a Facebook account, meet in this place and have
Mm,
this conversation. But
mm.
if you are in a therapy client situation, how would that work? And how is Facebook, how do we know what's being done with the data of this conversation? Because we know that these platforms, these systems analyze conversations and get keywords of things that people talk about. And then they offer services and they offer products associated with those themes that are apparently people are interested in. So what would be the impact of that in terms of, what people
It's a
talk?
really interesting question because we all
Mm,
have that experience of advertisements popping up in the middle of, and we think, how did they know that I was searching for such and such in a certain area? So yes, it's possible. If we
mm,
think of something innocuous, like a nice restaurant to eat on the island of Kos
yeah,
or something, and that's been in the conversation. Maybe we'll start getting adverts for flights to Kos
yeah,
or somewhere else, something else, or restaurants. It'd be very interesting to know. But that's likely to be happening in the background, even if we don't see the adverts.
right, right.
Yeah.
So lots of things to think about, and yeah, and keep
Yeah.
asking more
And back to
questions,
staring.
really.
But it's so nice just looking around, isn't it? And having
Mm,
a sense of distance. It
yeah,
The
yeah.
distance makes the difference, and the
Mm.
light and the peacefulness again.
And I love the shadow here. We can see the shadow and the sun, and yeah, it's very. I feel calmer after a few minutes of conversation here. I feel kind of
I want to come back to something about
yeah.
this
Let's do
business
that.
about Facebook and privacy,
Okay.
because, and maybe we'll talk more about it in
Mm,
another session, but there are,
yeah.
this is bigger than just Facebook.
Mm,
This
mm,
is not to excuse Facebook, it's just that it's bigger than that, because
yeah.
all the companies who are pioneering this software and this hardware are wanting to collect the data back from whoever purchases it.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. Hey, Fran.
Hello, Gail. You okay?
Yeah, how are you?
Fine, fine. Enjoying this view, enjoying this
Oh,
proximity. We change room, we change the
I,
distance between each other.
I love the proximity.
Mm,
I think that's great. It does feel more intimate to
yeah,
be close
yeah.
up to you. What's it like
Yeah,
from your
and
point of view?
I hear you closer too. So there is something about
Yeah,
being
me
closer and
too.
hearing closer. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know the other thing? When I just
Yeah,
spoke over you just now, I
yeah.
realized
Mm,
that in Zoom, there's often a time lag, and we often end up speaking over each other by accident, people
right.
generally. But there isn't that time lag here.
Mm,
I,
that's
I can
interesting.
speak over you, and you
Yeah.
make noises back or speak back, and it doesn't seem to interrupt anything. That's interesting.
Mm, mm. Really,
But
really interesting.
how how come you chose this environment, the city environment?
So this is part of the templates that we have in terms of the workrooms that Meta is offering, and it's all about working and meeting in different rooms. Um, but we were talking.
There are cars going over the bridge down there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really weird.
It's funny because I can't really turn very much that to that side because I have a wall. I have my wall, my living room wall. It's
Oh,
where the view is. So it's really interesting.
that's so mad. Oh my God. And do you know what I've done? Where I
What?
am sitting,
Uh-huh.
I've put up a screen between me and the window because I'm looking at you now, but if
Uh-huh.
anybody walked past the house, they'd think I was a complete crazy woman
Oh
talking to
well.
herself, waving her hands around, and so on. So yeah, so here we are
Yeah,
in our
yeah.
own normalized space. Um, I love
And
your
if it's
earrings.
oh,
I can see
thank
your
you.
nose ring now. I didn't realize you had a nose ring on.
And a bit overwhelmed really about all this information and all these things that are going on in terms of VR and psychotherapy, isn't it?
Well, I think there's something people
Mm.
don't really realize, and that is, I'm just scratching my nose.
But I can't see that, don't worry.
Oh, you can't see that?
No, no, no.
Okay. It's a
Yeah.
bit difficult if you've got an itchy nose in VR. These are the realities of, you forget you're wearing a headset. I, So back to something quite
Yeah.
serious that you've just raised. I think there's something about a very urgent
Mm,
moment in time
mm,
that we're going through that I don't think people realize who are working as psychotherapists. We're in a similar place to
mm.
where the psychotherapies were at in the mid 1990s, when
Right.
there was this urgency about needing to justify one's existence, the existence of the profession, in terms of providing an
Mm.
evidence base. And uh, I mean, the VR industry, as we know,
Yeah.
is massive. It's growing, but that has implications for psychotherapy as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there are lots of industries growing up developing psychotherapy and psychological treatments in VR.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they are not only creating programs and ways of doing
Mm.
things, but they're in the process of generating an evidence base and a consumer base.
Right. But how is that linked with the fact that from what we are finding out, most of th these developments are actually related to training people, skilling people, treating phobias and anxiety and all kinds of everything from a behavioral point of view, isn't it?
It is primarily behavioral, and so our cousins in CBT
Right.
are absolutely on the spot with this. They
Mm.
have set up companies, they are rolling them out internationally on a subscription basis, like SIOS. Do you remember that meeting we had with
Yeah.
SIOS? They're
Yeah.
really organized, aren't they, with their
Absolutely.
scripts and guidelines for therapists to follow, as if the therapists are automated therapists.
Yeah.
Ask these questions in this order for agoraphobia. Ask these questions in this order for fear of heights and all that, public speaking, whatever it is.
So should we say that CBT is kind of leading the way at the moment of this technological revolution in terms of psychotherapy,
I
isn't it?
think it's leading the way, and
Yeah.
I think it's potentially going
Shaping
to.
it too?
I'm
Shaping
trying
it
not to
too?
use the colonizing word.
Mm,
So
okay.
shaping it
Yeah.
slash
Yeah.
colonizing. And by that, what I mean is it's both it is creating something,
Mm,
but it is going to shape in a way that is going to be maybe colonizing is blaming as a
yeah.
blaming language. It's a pointing
Mm,
responsibility at the person doing something. But
yeah.
I think actually I'd probably turn the mirror around at ourselves, and that's
Yeah.
what we're interested in. Is we're interested, our primary objective is thinking about how the general psychotherapies that emphasize the importance of relationship
Yeah.
in the doing of psychotherapy need to
Yeah.
play catch up and
Yeah.
realize that people aren't just passive patients taking up whatever platform
Yeah.
we can offer, whether it's Zoom or in person or outdoor walking, talking, nature therapy, ecotherapy. It's it's also what people want, and
Yeah.
people are really interested in. A lot of people, anyway, living in VR. People have been living in gaming worlds and VR virtual reality worlds for a long time,
Yeah.
but
So we have
therapists have
some
been lagging behind.
right, right. But so we have some clips to kind of analyze and talk through together. Should we go through
Yeah,
that, do
let's
you
do
think?
that. So,
Yeah. Should we start, do you think, science maybe, and that emphasis in terms of
oh,
evidence base?
yeah, let's have a look at science. This is a sort of a real PR thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about it's very interesting. You need to listen
Mm.
to kind of stories of evidence-based data stuff with a
Yeah.
critical ear and think, how much evidence is there actually out there at the moment, and how
Yeah.
much is this a commercial speak of we know what we're doing because we've
Yeah.
got products we need to sell,
Yeah.
and because we're in the process of generating evidence. So they are
Yeah.
steps ahead.
Right.
What procedures applied via virtual reality have empirical evidence? We understand the importance of this question for our users. Here we explain briefly some important points. The use of virtual reality exposure therapy for clinical purposes has been investigated empirically for the last 20 years. Over this period, the evidence base has grown substantially, and multiple anxiety-related clinical diagnoses have been investigated, including, but not limited to, aquaphobia, aerophobia, arachnophobia, and PTSD. The effectiveness of virtual reality exposure therapy is now well established. 4 independent meta-analyses have concluded that such interventions lead to significant decreases in anxiety-related symptoms. SciAS is also part of several studies that are taking place right now. Projects that include, amongst others, the investigation of the use of virtual reality for cases of ADHD, claustrophobia, and social anxiety.
I think what's interesting for me about that particular clip is it reminds me, I suppose, Fran, of when we met with SciAS. And we met with them and they showed us how it all worked.
Yeah.
And you see that little clip there of a therapist sitting with a client in the room. And I mean, you're in Manchester and I'm in Yorkshire right now, and we could be in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
But in SciAS, you can't do it really very well remotely. You've got to be in the same room.
Right. So it's a bit of a hybrid model, isn't it? So the therapist has this tool that is VR, but the session takes place in a physical environment. The client goes there and has a headset. So it's an extra tool in that setting, isn't it?
It's an extra tool, and it's a kind of guided thing where the client goes at their own pace. They make their own decisions, but they have a lot of different scripts, don't they? They have a lot of different programs. You can choose from fear of heights, fear of public speaking, all those kinds of things. But they tend to be phobias and social anxieties.
So it's all about exposing the person to something that is aversive. Is that the exposure to the aversive stimuli, isn't it? So in a way, it's the same as in CBT. They use a lot of visualizations, don't they? Imagination and visualization. So VR as a replacement for that visualization.
That's true. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. That VR is an offering of someone else's imagination for you to...
Well, because it's so real, isn't it? We trick the brain with all this computerized technology, and we exactly.
So if we were able to, and you weren't going to walk into a wall on your way there, walk up to the edge there, we might also have some embodied reactions, feelings in our knees, or intake of breath, or something like that. Yeah. But I think a lot of people will find this really helpful, and also possibly the calming presence of a therapist taking them in stages at their own pace through the therapy. Should we look at another one then?
Yes.
What
I was thinking about
the game change one.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can't get out of the house to do something. They worry about it so much in themselves before they go out there, that is, that they feel they can't do it at all. So they avoid doing it.
It's having like a pain in your chest all the time. It's a heavy weight on your chest, and you feel like worried to meet somebody or to go to see a GP or to go on the bus. It's very hard.
I'd feel paranoid. I feel scared. It's about leaving the house.
It should be a good way to try out the things that you're scared of and sort of like learn that it's not as scary as it actually is.
I would say try and give it a go, and you can do it in your own pace, and you can change, you can stop when you like.
Yeah, I'd never done it before, so the first time I tried it I was like, whoa, this is really good. So it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. It's a fun concept. You put on the headset and you can see and you can hear all these different situations. So you use the virtual reality to help you with your thoughts and feelings and your confidence, and then when you go back into the real world you might feel a bit better.
Say you're in this shop situation and then you start having some kind of worry, and then you find a way within the VR to overcome that worry. And maybe like when you're in the real world, you have the exact same worry and you're like, right, what did I do in the VR? Oh, I did such a thing. And then you can try in the real world, you practice it over and over again in the VR.
Okay.
It's. What did you think of that clip?
I'm thinking that we're coming from the assumption that therapy and therapeutic work in this context is about teaching and upskilling people, isn't it? So you practice as a tennis player, you practice online, you practice with VR, and then you execute that in the real world. That's where we're coming
I
from.
haven't heard
isn't
anybody
it?
use the term, I don't think, upskilling, which is an interesting punctuation. I'm very interested in the ideological contexts of these different programs, because when we listen to the Oxford people in a moment, we'll hear them talking about teaching and education and learning. Whereas this was more about anticipating and preparing for different situations. And the next video we're going to see is something very similar. With the one you found about the children with autism. Should we have a look at that? Because that's
autism.
that's kind of a moving one. Let me just.
So we're talking about the same paradigm: skills, social skills, learning, exposure to aversive stimulus in the in the environment.
In a way, you could say that some of them are about treating the way of thinking, as opposed to so the SIOS approaches, the CBT approaches are usually trying to correct thinking. And somebody even talks about cure. I think it's let me just find that. There's a sort of, I don't know if that was in my quotes. Anyway, never mind that. It was something about, some people are talking about VR being able to cure people of their social phobias and social anxieties. Whereas I think in the game change and the one we're going to see around autism, nobody's trying to cure or teach. They're trying to help people prepare, and in a relational context. So it's less about corrective thinking in the brain, which is a kind of more individualized approach, but it's more of a kind of relational and systemic idea of how to coordinate, how to be with other people, and so on in situations.
Well, it's interesting because in the video, people were talking about their experience in a group. But I understand from the paper that the therapy is an individual setting, is a person with a headset in their homes. So
yes. So
it's
there
a
is
different thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the video, they are talking about their experience online using VR, but in the trial, they had their headsets and they were guided by this virtual coach through a series of processes, and we are talking about a set of 6 sessions over time, and that's it. So it's the same structured, manualized approach, very directed and very technology-led.
Then let's jump just to this quote for a moment from the people in Oxford, who there was this one chap, who Oliver Shipp, who's actually explaining that I mean, the Oxford University is so far. It's probably, I'm guessing, the place that's most ahead in the UK in terms of VR and psychological and psychotherapeutic research. And they are working with the Oxford NHS Trust, investing huge amounts of money and people time in digital development of therapies like the ones you just discussed. And Oliver Shipp says, not only are we the ones delivering innovative projects, but we're writing them up and we're calling those blueprints. And there's now 100 of those blueprints available. And he goes on to say they're available for other practitioners to benefit and use from. But, for me, the concept of blueprint is something quite fixed. It's sort of like something an architect would draw out for other people to then build from and to use. It suggests something...
A template? Like a template?
A manual. And very much like the SIOS model of literally, if a therapist isn't skilled in how to proceed with CBT, they say, and we have these worksheets with all questions you can ask.
Well, now
So
we're
it's
going to have the
manualized.
template. Absolutely. We're going to have the package. So you're a therapist, you buy the package, and you use it with your clients in your consulting room. That's the SIOS model. But then we're talking about something different in terms of the NHS Oxford, isn't it? Because it uses a virtual coach, and it seems to be something different. We have another quote where they are talking about using the help of support workers and assistant psychologists, and being able to kind of expand the use of the. Yeah, I think this the last quote. Yeah.
Oh yes, Daniel Freeman and team. From you said it was from April in 2022.
Yeah, this just came out.
Do you want to read it?
I can't read it. It's
okay,
too,
that's fine. From I'm
you.
sitting a bit more in front of it. With suitable supervision arrangements, the therapy can be supported by peer support workers, assistant psychologists, or cognitive behavioral therapists. The increasing availability and affordability of standalone VR headsets means that patients could keep the device at home for some time, thereby substantially increasing the amount of therapy received. And that fits with what June Dent of the Oxford Health Trust said. There just aren't enough psychological therapists, it's meant to say. So by introducing technology, we can have lots of different people treated at scale for different disorders. So this is becoming quite an industry now. And maybe we should jump rather to the Oxford chap and just listen to how he frames psychological therapy done digitally.
Psychologists have worked quite hard in recent years to try and capitalize on the digital revolution. Psychotherapy is all about learning new skills. And of course, normally when we're teaching people, we don't just do it through a conversation. But psychotherapy has often traditionally just been done through a conversation. So the digital world really allows us to look at other ways of helping people learn things. And so you can put a lot of the key ideas that you want to convey in a psychological therapy into an internet program and allow people to never closes.
What digital?
So ideas, put those ideas into an internet program. And there's something in that idea about not restricting therapy to the notion of a 1 hour, for example, session every couple of weeks or whatever it might be, that people can work on things on their own. But it's a very particular idea of psychotherapy, that it's just a conversation, that it's just ideas and there's nothing else going on.
About learning, isn't it? It's just ideas about learning. It's about training.
It's about training. It's about learning. It's a very particular. So it is the cognitive behavioral educational model, and maybe let's just skip to the. Should we skip to the
autism?
Yeah, let's just see
because this is how VR can be applied to actually teaching children joint attention, children with autism, joint attention, and then other uses of that.
And I think also with families, they could also be seeing what the children are learning and help reinforce that, because this idea of learning in your own time may be for very motivated adults. But, you know, to be honest, a lot of us with, say, something like fear of heights, I'm not going to be putting on the SIOS on whatever of an evening and forcing myself to go near the edges. You know, it's going to be very difficult. But it's something else then about people around you. And whether they are taking you seriously or whether they think, oh, she's just exaggerating, they're just doing such and such. Okay. So
anxiety comes down, the confidence comes up, and the motivation to come back and keep doing this.
And Max isn't the only student who participated in Florio's program.
Okay, Drew. Perfect.
We measure several different dimensions of the skill joint attention, and 10 of the 12 kids showed clear improvements in that skill. And these were older kids who had more moderate to severe autism.
I just want to pause this to say this is very important video because this is about, you found this and identified it as important because it's about preparing children for unexpected encounters with the police. because there's a very big history, isn't there, of autistic children, autistic men, autistic anybody, but particularly black people being highly at risk. We've just read various papers and poems by Frida McEwen on the dangers for black autistic men in particular in public, because of racism, institutional racism, and so on. So this is very profound. So we'll carry on.
Florio is busy building more advanced training situations in virtual reality.
Can I talk to you a moment?
Yes.
This is Manoj beta testing the latest one, a police safety simulation. The police safety module is part of an NIH study in partnership with Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's Center for Autism Research. Florio started building the police safety module after an incident in 2016 where police approached an autistic man who wandered from his group home. The incident resulted in his caretaker being shot by the police.
We basically started building content to simulate what it would be like to have an unexpected encounter with law enforcement and start being exposed to some of the language that the officers would use in that interaction.
All right, you're free to go.
These children are intelligent. It's not a matter of an intellectual disability. It's more how the information is coming in and their inability to organize that information. Keep looking.
There is this transferal between enjoying an activity in the digital space to then building skills and applying it to the real world.
Okay. Yeah, it's just so heartbreaking, isn't it? Because so we're using technology so that children know how to react when they see a policeman instead of teaching the policeman how to react when they see a kid. And so the point is that the children need to learn what you're free to go means, not the policeman knowing that they need to refer to a child using maybe different wording. It's unbelievable, and it's in the storyline. This is as important as joint attention or teaching, to find an animal in the desert or in the jungle, which is what the program teaches. I don't know. It's just really, really crazy. Yeah. So in a way, another issue that we might want to raise is the fact that we're using VR to teach people with autism, people on the spectrum, autistic people with learning disabilities, to adapt to the neurotypical world. It's an extra demand, isn't it? We're teaching them to adapt to the neurotypical world. So we're using VR in people with mental health difficulties and psychosis and anxiety, phobias, and this and that, to come to the neurotypical world.
I think that's a very important point about most of the psychotherapies, CBT and other forms of therapy. This is also an opportunity in a virtual world to create virtual selves, and for the images of therapists and the sounds, the voices and accents of therapists to represent others in their world who, in a real representative way. I'm thinking about more people of global majority, people who are trans, people who are queer in one way or another, older people, and people with different bodies, people with different abilities and disabilities, or however we want to think about that. Because so far, when we think of some of the clips we've seen, it's been a lot of white men doing the developing. That's not actually the whole story of what's going on. But it's and a lot of able-bodied people. A lot of white people. So it's interesting to think about what the possibilities are here.
Now that you say that, I'm wondering if I'm a wheelchair user, I can't be represented by these avatars and this context, isn't it? If I want to have my wheelchair here, I can't.
I think there may be some programs where that is a possibility. But what's also interesting is some of the research into how achieving people feel they can be in a virtual reality space, that they have experiences of being mobile or being social, achieving in different ways that they aren't able to trying to think of some reasonable words here, aren't able to participate in
Yeah.
a world that is mononormative,
Yeah.
neurotypical, difficult access, which gets pinned on the person as though they have the difficulties, as opposed to the environment being excluding.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of things to think about, isn't it?
Let's just maybe have a quick look at the final video.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of ethical issues as well. And I think one of the things that's preoccupying us is the amount of money in play.
Yeah.
And the balance of ethics and who's overseeing what counts as good ethical practice. There's a lot of emphasis in VR there's a big narrative of people can go at their own speed.
Yeah.
People can choose how to proceed. So it sounds both practical and ethical.
Limbic's long-term plan is to sell its software to large institutions like VA hospitals and drug and alcohol treatment clinics. So far, Limbix has $3 million in VC funding, and they're 6 months into their testing program with therapists.
So, are you seeing something?
Yes, looks like sand, maybe a beach.
Yeah, great. If you're feeling comfortable, my plan would be to kind of take it up a notch.
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I think this one might be a good option.
Take it to the edge here.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
I would never do this in real life.
Okay, what's the sense right now?
The sense is, why am I here?
Okay, hold on 1 second. I think you should be transported to a bridge.
Gabe?
Yep.
Did you just take it to 11? Is this 11? Just be honest with me.
This is it? I mean, it's dependent on you. Does it feel like an 11?
I mean, I don't know how much higher you could take it. This is pretty bad.
So is this 100 out of 100? Is that what you're saying?
We're pushing 80 and 90. Yeah, this is up there.
Well, let's stop here. Whenever you're ready, I would say go ahead and take that
Sure.
headset off.
Whoa, hi.
Yeah, hey, welcome back.
What's up?
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
What did you make of it?
I think I'd be very interested in what other people make of it and what it, physically it brings up for them, professionally as ethical issues brings up for them. It's something about making a distinction perhaps between we have things available to us. It's what we do with them. The thing in itself isn't bad, but how we practice, we have a lot of choices in how we choose to coordinate with people and how we use our power. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there is so much stuff to think about, and I'm wondering what the people that are hearing us feel and think at the moment, and whether it's time to finish and maybe throw a question to the table.
I think for me, the biggest question for all of us in psychotherapy right now is, rather than have a fear of VR or fear of technology, a fear of how it's being used, to overcome our fears in some CBT type way and think, how are we going to see this as an opportunity for enhancing and extending the relational psychotherapies, the systemic psychotherapies? How can we use this so people feel at home, welcome, comfortable, joint owners? Yeah, so that's one question from me. What would be your question that you're putting on the table for people?
Probably around what you were mentioning before, around maybe decolonizing, whether have that question in my head. How can we use VR in a way that doesn't colonize the people that we work with?
That's a nice extension, Fran, because my question was too adaptive, but yours has got the political edge. It's a reminder that Lenticular Futures is putting decolonizing at the forefront of everything we do. So thank you for that nudge.
Thank you.
See you in the next room at another moment in time.